Thanks, Molly. Hi, I'm Maria. I'm an alcoholic.
Oh, Maria.
Oh,
Hey, Maria.
Hello, Maria.
Hi, Maria.
hello, everyone. I feel like I just spoke on here not too long ago, so if you just heard me not too long ago, I apologize. But not really. Yeah, so as I just said, I have a sobriety date of January 8th, 2014. Just celebrated 6 years, which is crazy. Because once upon a time, I couldn't imagine going 24 hours without taking a drink. So yeah, I have a sponsor, who has a sponsor, and this is my current home group, which, as Molly said, I have service positions in. I apologize in advance because I'm really shaky. I don't know if it's because I'm nervous or because I've barely eaten today because I was running around all day, but just FYI, that's a thing. But yeah, so those are my little qualification things. I'm currently in New York City. I live in Brooklyn, but I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and that is where I got sober and spent the first 5 years of my sobriety. I need to set a timer for myself because I like to talk. Okay. So my story is not anything crazy. I drank a lot. I don't come from a huge family of alcoholics like a lot of people talk about in the rooms. Neither of my parents are alcoholics. My mom just likes to drink wine at night, and my dad doesn't like drinking, which just like baffles me. But my mom's dad was an alcoholic, my maternal grandfather, and he got sober on August 19th, 1963, and was sober until the day he died in 1991. And he was extremely active in AA and helped start one of the big clubhouses in St. Louis, and he was a circuit speaker, and so he's, very big AA. So my mom knew what AA was growing up, which was very key to me getting sober. But then my mom's brother, my uncle, he was also an alcoholic, and he was a dry drunk for many, many years, and he ended up shooting himself in the head. And so I have two examples in my family of, the fate of an alcoholic. You can either work a program and have a full life, or, the other way around. And those were basically my two options towards the end. So yeah, I don't remember what my first technical drink was, but I remember the first time I got drunk and felt that feeling that us alcoholics are all very obsessed with. I was 16, so I was kind of a late bloomer. But before that, I had very alcoholic tendencies. I would obsess and just like do things alcoholically all the time. Me and my mom laugh about how the signs were totally there from very early on. I always felt like I was just trying to catch up with everyone, or I was trying to, reach something. I don't know what that something was, but I ended up being a huge perfectionist, and for some reason in the years 89 and 90, like for some reason, like something was in the water and made everyone like a huge overachiever, because every single class I was in, no matter like what school, like elementary school, middle school, high school, college, like everyone was like so good at everything. And I was a really good student. I was decent at some sports. I had my talents, but I just always felt like I wasn't good enough. And I always felt like I wasn't worthy, or, there was just this like hole in me. I felt like, some people say other people got the rule book to life and they didn't. I like didn't even know there was a rule book. Like I just like was totally lost and just always trying to find somewhere or something for me to feel like I belong or feel like I was worthy. And for me, when I got drunk for the first time, that was it. You know, I found something before then that was really fulfilling and became kind of my thing. And, you know, that kind of got me through, you know, it's what I ended up going to college for and all that. But then as soon as, you know, alcohol came into the picture, that was it. It made me not so insecure. It made me not a perfectionist. It made me not care what anyone thought about me. You know, I was the hottest girl in the room. I was the best dancer in the room. I was hilarious. Like it didn't matter. And most importantly, I didn't have to feel any of those things. None of those things actually went away. I just wasn't feeling them. And that's what alcohol did for me. It was pretty progressive for me. I was a pretty functioning alcoholic. Outwardly, everything looked pretty normal. Like when I drank in high school, and then I went to a party school for college. So on the outside, I was doing what everyone else was doing. But internally, I just couldn't wait until we could get drunk. And no serious consequences happened until my senior year of college. I had just gotten out of an abusive relationship, and that's kind of what triggered me into my huge, I just dove right into my alcoholism. And all my dreams and aspirations and my care and my love for people just went out the door. And drinking became this thing that was fun and made me carefree and not care. And it just became something I had to do to survive. But I was like burning every bridge and every relationship in the process. So I graduated. I was a very functioning alcoholic. I graduated college with honors. Don't ask me how that happened, but it did. Probably because I was a musical theater major, so it wasn't that hard. But that happened. But I left with, you know, all my friends were, you know, moving to New York right away, or, and I had no friends. Well, I did, but not really. Like I had, you know, just destroyed every relationship that was special to me, and every friend that, you know, cared and took care of me, basically, because when I drank, I became the girl in my worst nightmares. I said horrible things. I did horrible things. I would cry with you about your boyfriend and then go and hook up with him behind your back. I would steal from you. I would, you know, just do these horrible things. But the best part was I would sit there and be the victim and be like, why don't I have any friends? Like, everyone's doing this to me. Like, me, this is being done to me. And that was my mentality for a very long time. So fast forward to when I went home, I did what every good alcoholic does, and became a bartender. And best career for an alcoholic. And I mean, the best way to put it is drinking just became my full-time job. I drank so much alcohol that when I would end up getting breathalyzer tests, like their jaws would be on the floor being like, I don't know how you're alive. And basically, you know, long story short, it was just a very sad, lonely situation. I think about how I was now. I mean, I would literally just like drink fifths in my room by myself every single night. And that's what my life looked like. Like, I couldn't watch a TV show without being drunk. I couldn't do anything without being drunk. And I ended up in the hospital a couple times because I started getting pills in the mix. Because my parents were getting sick of my shit and they were threatening to kick me out. So alcohol is pretty easy to smell when you live with your parents, but figured out pills don't smell. So then things started getting really dangerous because I was mixing them all. So one night, my dad found me passed out cold in my room. I didn't have a pulse. They found a bunch of pills all over my bed and a knife, and I got taken to the emergency room. where I woke up with an IV in me that looked like Mountain Dew and a woman asking me why I tried to kill myself. And I had no idea what she was talking about. I was like, I was just trying to get fucked up like I do every night. I don't know what you're talking about. And basically, and, you know, my family was in the corner crying, like they were scared to death. And I had the choice of either treatment or outpatient. So I chose outpatient. And this social worker and this doctor looked me in the eye and said, if you don't change how you're acting and what you're doing, you're not going to live to see 30. If you're lucky with that. So that's how I ended up in outpatient. And then that is how I learned about this disease I have called alcoholism. And I learned that once I start drinking, I can't stop because my body just needs more of it once it is in my system. And then even if I don't drink, if I don't have some sort of spiritual solution or spiritual program of action, I will obsess about it until I drink again or use something else. And, you know, it clicked. It's so funny because I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like, I'm totally an alcoholic. Like, yeah, this checks out. I wasn't like, no, not me. I'm not an alcoholic. Like, I was pretty accepting of the fact that I was an alcoholic, but I just wasn't willing to basically just do a first step. I wasn't willing to admit complete defeat because I was like, there has to be some way that I can still drink and function as a human being, because alcohol is all I have. Like, it is, you know, the love of my life, like my only friend. Like, I can't like live without this. So, long story short, at the end of 2013, I had, you know, been on and off trying to not drink, seeing counselors, blah, 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 blah. Ended up in the hospital a couple more times. My mom kicked me out a bunch of times, and she looked me in the eye and she said, I'm not going to watch you die like I watched my brother die. And so she knew a gal who was the same age as me, who got sober when she was 17 and was still sober. And I was 23 at the time. And she begged her to 12-step me. And, you know, I was willing to meet with her because deep down I was still a people pleaser and I didn't want my family to hate me. So I met with her and she told me her story, and it was exactly like mine. And I was like, you know, at that point I was still terminally unique. I was like, I'm the only one who does this, but she was saying these things that were exactly, you know, my story. And I told her mine, and she was like, and she's like, I'm sober now, and this is how I'm sober now. Do you think this is something you might want to try? And this time I was like, yeah, totally. And she wrote out a list of meetings for me to go to, and those eventually became the meetings I went to every single day for the first 5 years of my sobriety, and the meetings that saved my life. But at the time I still wasn't ready. And I still had some drinking left in me after, you know, a pretty rough rock bottom involving my sister. And, you know, long story short, I was in Kansas City. She went to school there. She got in a car accident, and I had to take her to the hospital. And instead of being worried about my little sister, all I could think of was, crap, I don't get to get drunk now. And if there's ever a fleeting thought in my mind that I'm not an alcoholic, which there usually isn't, but if there is, I just think back to that moment, because there's nothing more alcoholic in my mind than that, because there's no one I care more about than my little sister, and I'm like too overprotective of her. So I ended up taking her to the hospital and being a good alcoholic and bringing a fifth with me and drinking the entire fifth in the emergency room, which she was fine. She just had to get a checkup, but still. And she ended up having to take care of me. I ended up in the middle of the street somehow, and she screamed she hated me and never wanted to talk to me again. So that was like a rock bottom for me, and I was like, I need help. So I reached out to that girl again, and I went to my first, not my first meeting. I had been to a meeting before, but it was a bunch of old people, and I just like wasn't, I related to the speaker, but I just wasn't ready. But this was a young people's meeting, and everyone was my age, and everyone was smiling and laughing and like getting along. And I was like, this is weird. Why are you guys so happy? And on the outside, people always tell me when I first came in, like I was just as smiley and stuff as I am now, but which might be true, but internally, I mean, I was dying. And I felt so insecure. I felt so like just lost, like I crawling out of my skin. But I went to this meeting, and I looked around, and I thought, these people are doing it. These people are my age. They're saying the exact same things how I feel. Like if they're sober, maybe I can be sober too. Maybe there is something better out there for me that doesn't involve alcohol. So I had almost 30 days, but I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't get a sponsor. I didn't work any steps. I was just going to meetings to please my parents, because at that point I still wasn't doing it for me. I still didn't think I deserved happiness or a life or anything. I was just doing it for my parents and for my sister, because I knew I was making them miserable. So I was destined for failure. And so when I was in a situation where a drink was placed in front of me, I had no defense against the first drink. I had no spiritual toolkit whatsoever. So I picked up, and I love to point out that it was at the Backstreet Boy concert is where my last drink was, December 8th, 2013. And I didn't even get wasted or anything. Nothing bad happened, but I got home that night, and I'm glad you like that, Juliet. Not only was it at the Backstreet Boy concert, we went to TGI Fridays after. So I really went out with a bang. But yeah, I got home, and I was like that rare, like perfect amount of drunk that happens. And I just stared up at the ceiling, and I just had that moment of clarity and was like, I'm done. I'm good. I can't do this anymore. I really can't. And I heard someone say in a meeting once, and I know I've shared this in this meeting before, that, you know, they don't believe in high bottoms or low bottoms or anything like that. You know, everyone has a pissing contest of whose bottom was crazier. That they believe that we each get these moments of clarity with every bad bottom that happens. And it's just a matter of if we grab on to that moment of clarity or not, and when that is. And I believe that to be true. So that was my moment of clarity I grabbed onto. And then I just went back to those meetings that she had written down. And I was just like a little puppy. Like I was just running around. I was just like standing there until someone talked to me, which they always did. And they were like, do you have a sponsor? I was like, no. And they're like, let's get you a sponsor. Do you want to go to fellowship? Come on, we're going to fellowship. Do you do this? Do you pray? Do you do this? And I was just like, Like I was just like, I was just like, I'm ready. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Yeah, so I started doing it, but my belly button birthday is January 8th as well. And I didn't do everything that was told to me, like change your people, places, and things. And I hung out with one of my former drinking buddies for my birthday, and who she is now sober, fun fact. And she was like, I know you can't drink, but you want to smoke pot? And I was like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Like weed wasn't even my thing, like totally. So we smoked pot for my birthday, and then I got home and the exact same thing happened. I was like, oh, I don't think this is right either. Like, ugh. But me being like the perfect little perfectionist coward that I was, like I lied about it till I almost had a year. I lied about smoking pot. And then at that point, I couldn't remember when it was that I smoked pot. But it was, someone was talking about honesty in a meeting, and it was like eating at me, and I was like, oh, crap. And so I told my sponsor, and I was just crying because my birthday was in a month and I wasn't going to get my coin and blah, 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 blah. And so we sat down and we like figured out when it would have been. And so that's how we ended up just making it the same as my belly button birthday, January 8th. And all I had to do was push it back a month. It wasn't that big of a deal. I got over it in a couple of days, but at that moment, it was the end of the world. But I realized I'd rather push it back a month and be honest and be able to sit here and tell you that this is how much clean and sober time I have. So yeah, AA started as something I knew I had to go to and do to survive. And then it became just my way of life because it started making me feel better and it started giving me a life. So yeah, a lot of unfortunate things happened to me in my first year of sobriety that were life on life's terms things, totally out of my control. And I got through them with more grace and whatever than pretty minuscule things I deal with today. And I think about that sometimes, and I'm like, why is that? And it's because, in my first year, I was working a program with just desperation of staying alive. And so like I was in the boat on all fours. Like I was just like in it. So I always remind myself of that whenever I'm going through a hard time today. The fellowship became my second family. Still my best friends to today. I had the same sponsor for the first 5 years before I moved. And I got through the steps, I did a really thorough 4th and 5th, because like I said, I'm a perfectionist, and, made amends to all those people I had burned bridges with, most importantly, my family. And yeah, and this is the part where everyone says, and now everything's sunshine and rainbows and everything's fine. But life is life. I have an amazing life. I've had an amazing life. The things I've learned, like through the cool thing about AA is I've never not met someone in AA who hasn't been through the exact same thing as me. And I haven't found that anywhere else in anything in my life. I've been able to get through anything life throws at me because of this program. And most of the things I go through now are blessings compared to what I went through before. Not everything. There's some shitty things too, but a lot of things. Like, I live in New York now. I didn't think that was ever going to be a possibility. I'm in New York trying to chase my dreams. Like, not a lot of people get to, like, it sounds corny as shit even coming out of my mouth. But the only reason I'm here and able to do that is because of this program. And the only reason I'm doing it still sane or anything is because of this program and the people in it. I've had some really dark days since I moved here, really dark days. I've never wanted to pick up because thank God, like, if anything, my first step is always solid. Like, it doesn't take much for me to be like, oh yeah, I cannot drink. Like, I just can't. One thing that never fails for me is service, being of service. There's very little that service work won't cure or help with, because it takes me out of myself, especially helping a newcomer. But yeah, like today, like my day today, on paper, it seems pretty standard, normal. Like I woke up, I have a really long commute. I like to do this meditation that has affirmations in it on my commute, to just get me in the right headspace. And so I did that. I went to work, I went to an audition, and then I went back to work, and then I commuted home and I talked to another alcoholic, and like now I'm here sharing on this meeting. Now on paper it sounds like pretty whatever, but like considering like the girl who, 6 years ago, or I guess 7 years ago, couldn't leave her room without taking a drink of alcohol, like it's pretty substantial. And I'm the one who takes that for granted. And just the person that Alcoholics Anonymous has made me. When I left, leaving St. Louis was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, because I had a job that I was making really good money. I had the best AA community ever. My family and I are so close. And when I left, one of my friends threw me this huge going away party, and all these people showed up, people I hadn't seen in years. That girl who was my former drinking buddy, who's now sober, like people who lived an hour away, like all these people came because they loved me and because they claimed that I made some sort of like impact or brought some sort of joy into their life. And that just like still, like just thinking about that just astounds me, because I was a trash human when I was drinking. And that's AA. I mean, that's all AA. That's God in AA. So I feel like I'm just kind of rambling now. So, if you can't tell, I'm really grateful. If you're new, like, just give it a try. Just try. That's all I can say. Just try, because I promise it's better than picking up or, just sitting being miserable. Just try it. Reach out to people. It's scary, but I'm having problems doing that in New York, which is why an online meeting is my home group. I'm struggling with that now. So, but it's the most rewarding thing ever. So just try, try your best. I have a friend, one of my very best friends in this program. I'm looking at my phone constantly because I'm afraid I'm going to get a phone call that he died, because that's just like where he's at right now. And this is a life or death thing. I just turned 30. That doctor told me I wasn't going to turn 30 if I kept drinking the way I was. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now. I love you guys. Thank you. That's all. Bye.
Thank you, Maria.